It's me, Pup. How are you doing? I, for one, am feeling a little skeptical. Skeptical about the recent narrative surrounding Jon Watts, director of the MCU's Spider-Man Home trilogy. I think I do agree with the general consensus that the Home trilogy are the weakest looking Spider-Man films. There are moments that look really cool, but on a whole they are the flattest, weakest looking Spider-Man films. More consistent than The Amazing Spider-Man 2, for example, and how that kind of pivots between looking like an indie film and looking like a cartoon. But even then, all of the many different looks of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 still looked more striking than what you'll find in the MCU's Home trilogy. Spider-Man Brand New Day massively improved upon the visual component. The film looks absolutely stunning by all accounts. Visually, it is a love letter to Spider-Man, the comic medium, and easily one of the most well-directed films to come from the MCU. I think in terms of every Spider-Man director's first rodeo, Destin Daniel Cretton has come out swinging the strongest. Yeah, even above Sam Raimi, which is insane. Bear in mind, I'm just factoring in debuts to Spider-Man here. I'm not saying that Brand New Day is a more well-directed movie than, say, Spider-Man 2, where Raimi got a bit more confidence in the Spider-Man movies. Those are kind of equals. We're comparing 10 out of 10 to 10 out of 10. But because Spider-Man fans would rather be angry than celebrate Destin Daniel Cretton's achievement, a lot of the conversation you'll find among Spidey community spaces is about how Jon Watts should be tried for war crimes, because his movies were completely sourceless. Which isn't true at all, to be honest. There are saucy sequences across all three of the Spider-Man Home movies. It's just that the majority of these movies tend to rely on more simple shot, reverse shot, and save the fancy stuff for purely just specific moments. So you do still get some visual iconography in there, some memorable visuals, and yeah, all three of the Spider-Man Home movies do have some memorable visual moments, many of which fully in CGI, with Jon Watts even advocating for web swinging to be handled purely with CGI rather than any practical, with the exception of shots that hold on Spidey and MJ. For example, the Snorri cam shots, where a camera is attached to part of either Tom Holland or Zendaya's body, while the action happens around them. As far as Spider-Man movies go, this technique originated in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, as fans had joked the dick's eye view shots. Jon Watts employed these for practical web-swinging sequences, as did Destin Daniel Cretton. And outside of those Snorri cam shots, for the most part, Destin Daniel Cretton's web swinging is also CGI. Yes, they did have film shoots that involved practical web swinging, but people do need to understand that there's a lot that is shot purely for lighting reference for the CGI artists. The main thing I'm trying to get at here is that Jon Watts gets a lot of heat, but a lot of people don't really realize what Jon Watts' role was within the Home trilogy compared to what Destin Daniel Cretton's role was in Brand New Day. Yes, the Home movies are significantly weaker looking than Spider-Man Brand New Day. They're significantly weaker looking than the TASM movies and the Raimi movies. But the reason is not because Jon Watts is a hack, okay? I think it's very important to just get the real information out there. For one, philosophically speaking, Brand New Day had a very different production pipeline. The underwhelming look of the Home trilogy is shared by various other MCU movies. It was a consistent complaint, so again, really not sure why Jon Watts gets the hate for this. It's also worth noting he is not the cinematographer, he is not the lighting coordinator, and he isn't in charge of color grading either. The main thing though is that Brand New Day simply had extra time to coordinate the shoots. The Spider-Man Home trilogy movies were made to strict 2-year deadlines, and they used that Marvel Studios approach of gearing the film up around VFX. Simple shot reverse shot with flat lighting is a technique that Marvel have used for decades because it makes compositing VFX 10 times easier than if you have incredible crazy camera movements, angles, and lighting. As well as this, overall production coordination is 10 times easier with simple filming like this, because you can account for actor schedules not aligning. Let's say, you've got 2 actors in this scene, but only one of them can show on a specific day and one of them can show on another day, so you don't want to have to worry about elaborate lighting setups and incredibly coordinated shots. It makes the thing much easier to edit. And because of this assembly line approach, you also don't see a lot of MCU films with any kind of expressive color grading. When you look at the majority of Spider-Man No Way Home, there's nothing really artistic about its slippery, LUT-less look. Usually, MCU production pipelines don't allow much time for color grading, so you'll just get a couple of scenes with some interesting color grading, and that's it. This is what Jon Watts was working with. Not to mention, Jon Watts was hired with the understanding that these MCU movies would move away from the dramatic tone of previous Spider-Man films. A lot of this largely largely being a reaction to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was the last Spider-Man movie to release before the Home trilogy. Marvel Studios wanted lighter genre movies, stuff that fits into their mold, and Jon Watts was working within that. You could still see his personality as a director in there, particularly in high school scenes in Spider-Man Homecoming. He brings a lot of character and a lot of awkwardness to those, and he's largely to thank for that kind of dorky outlier feeling that those early MCU Spider-Man films have compared to the rest of the MCU. He also likes to have a lot of tension and ticking clocks in his action sequences. A key difference, though, is that post-Spider-Man No Way Home and the huge success of that movie, Tom Holland wanted to leverage his star power as the actor in such a successful movie to kind of free the cast and crew from that Marvel pipeline, giving them a lot more time to coordinate the production ahead of shooting. With the Jon Watts movies, scripts were constantly being changed during production, while for this, during production, the script remained the same. They had the movie figured out before they started shooting it, which used to be the norm in a pre-Marvel world, I'm just saying. But also, production did have to be delayed due to Tom Holland's work on the Odyssey, once again giving the production crew more time to coordinate. When you look at the Home movies, you are looking at movies with very light pre-production planning, while when you look at Spider-Man Brand New Day, it is a lot more involved. Tom Holland knew that he had become a more important figure in the Spider-Man film production process. He's Spider-Man, he's the star of the movie. You got no him, you got no Spider-Man, you got no Spider-Man, you got no Spider-Man movie. He knows this, he leveraged that with Sony, and he also took a lot of inspiration from what he learned from Christopher Nolan on the Odyssey. He's very much a filmmaker's actor, with a demonstrated commitment to quality. That is just awesome. So with Brand New Day, you had a very important leading man that is incredibly dedicated to quality and ensuring that the filmmakers have space to breathe. It's also worth noting that Jon Watts cited burnout as a reason for not directing the Fantastic Four movie, not returning to superhero films for the time being, which makes sense given the pipeline that he was working under. We haven't really seen a Jon Watts Spider-Man movie. I think the closest thing to that is Spider-Man Homecoming. But these weren't really Jon Watts movies so much as they were MCU movies directed by Jon Watts. And that has been a common complaint about the MCU for decades, and only recently have we seen any change in direction. But also, is it really fair to hinge the shortcomings of a film purely on one person? Consider this, larger problems with Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home that were not present in Spider-Man Homecoming were writing issues, leaning way too hard into farcical humor. Well, the writers who worked on Spider-Man Far From Home and No Way Home returned for Spider-Man Brand New Day, but you wouldn't really notice it. Same person, different overall job. So while, yes, Jon Watts was the director of the Home trilogy, and Destin Daniel Cretton is the director of Spider-Man Brand New Day, it is in effect a different role. When the pipeline changes and all the external variables changes, as does the performance. Give an actor a day to rehearse a monologue, and the performance is going to be different to if you gave them 2 days to practice a monologue. 2 years and 5 years are two very different things. That's over double that. An extra 6 months from a production delay to coordinate things is only going to help the overall quality of the film. None of this at all is to discredit Destin Daniel Cretton. Again, he did an absolutely tremendous job with the film. But I'm more trying to say, let's celebrate on focusing Destin Daniel Cretton's achievement while also taking into account what Jon Watts was working with. And that's also not to say that Jon Watts' work is immune to criticism, but it's important that it be informed criticism. And while I'm seeing a lot of talking, I'm not really seeing a lot of that. We are, at the end of the day, comparing films that had 2-year deadlines to a film that has a 5-year deadline. Pre-production coordination is incredibly important. You could have Ethan and Joel Coen direct a Spider-Man movie, but if they don't have time to coordinate it, it's not really going to mean beans. I just think it's important to set the record straight there, because I hate seeing actual filmmakers getting dunked on for studio reasons. Alright, patron time. Manalza, KB, Twilord, Biotin, Sirius the Skeptic, and Mr. SP. Kale Bennett becoming game reviewer for the funny? Okay, I look forward to that, Kale Bennett. You have to send me some of the videos. Videos, reviews, I don't know why I'm assuming they're videos. Just let me know when you do it. Don't be joking about this, Kale Bennett, okay? Don't be joking about that. I want to see what you come up with. Dare Denny, Sad Goku, Ghostly Phantom, Neo Metal Pup, Council of Geeks, SSS06, Carl X, RT0, Marv Animation, Grant Allen, Josh Strider, Ben Raven, Basic Content, CL Wells. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I really like the new name you got there, Wells. Hell yeah, or should I say wells yeah. Pressplater Jason, Joseph Tribble, and Cho Henshin. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to all of you, my channel is indeed the buffet. Get yourself a plate, you are not full. Thank you. Gonna make you into my plump pig.